My brain is so fried right now.
Mine too.
So, how do we open the episode?
Maybe we just try transparency.
Okay. Guys, we're gonna be honest. It's been a rough week.
You know who else had a rough week? American Eagle. I'm getting so much Old Navy sponsored posts right now on TikTok.
I guess you could say Old Navy is playing the game. Hint, hint, nudge, nudge.
Let's circle back to that.
Hi there, welcome back to another episode of the Let's Circle Back podcast. We are your somewhat tired hosts. I'm Valentina.
And I'm Hebe.
And today we are circling back to one of the topics that we have been the most excited about. In fact, this is a topic we actually planned before the launch of our podcast. Drumroll, please.
Drumroll.
Today's topic is gaming. Before we get into it, just your usual reminder that this podcast is not corporate affiliated and all opinions are our own.
Okay, let's get into it. As you know, we like to start off with a little bit of a personal anecdote as like an introduction to the whole podcast. So maybe we start off by talking about our personal experiences with gaming, like any childhood games that we've played, current obsessions. So I guess I'll go first. I started off with a Nintendo 3DS. Specifically, I think I had a Pokemon game cartridge, but I don't really think that counts because I literally just got it from my cousin. I was way too young to understand what that whole setup was. And then in like elementary school, middle school, I got my first iPad and I was introduced to mobile games. So think like Subway Surfer, Temple Run, and then came like my computer era. So I was on Animal Jam. I'm sure everyone played like Papa's Freezeria in school. And then I stopped for a while until I got my first Nintendo Switch just last year. So I've been playing a lot of Zelda and Stardew Valley.
We have so many similarities in our gaming history. I feel like mine's stretched a little more. My first gaming anything was either a Nintendo DS Lite or a Nintendo DSi. I've had both, I just don't remember which one was first. And I've played everything Nintendo. I'm biased towards the Mario franchise and the Pokemon franchise, but I've done it all. I had the Wii, the Wii U, loved those. And then in middle school and high school, I really wanted to try PC and PlayStation gaming, but low key, like, nobody let me join them. I think it's because I was like a girl and I was the only one who was not the same age as anyone else, but whatever. And now I really love my Switch and my cozy PC games. And as ashamed as I am to admit it, I do love League of Legends. I think I'm developing a slight addiction.
Maybe before we get into the whole spiel of Gen Z and gaming, we do like a quick history crash course, maybe. So, gaming historically as a whole can be roughly broken out into, I would say, like five different eras. Of course, we're just hobbyists, we're not professionals by any means. But I like to think of arcades, so arcade machines, that was kind of before our time.
Oof. Way to age some of our key audience. Guys, he be saying that respectfully.
Okay, I'm not saying that those are artifacts. I have, in fact, seen a couple of those at like bowling alley. So there's also consoles and handheld games. So from arcade where you like hang out at a designated spot, now we have gaming at home. And Nintendo, I believe, really dominated that space when handheld games were at its peak.
Did you ever have a PSP?
And
I feel like that was popular, but I don't think I ever had one.
no. Does Wii count or is Wii something different?
We something different.
Okay, cut the cameras. So after consoles, we have PCs. So think The Sims, Halo, World of Warcraft, Minecraft actually started off as a PC game, which I didn't know until we started doing the research for this episode. Okay, so after PC came mobile. I think that's probably what we're a little bit more familiar with. But there's Subway Surfer, as aforementioned, Angry Birds, Flappy Bird, a lot of birds.
This is unlocking so many memories for me.
Yeah, I used to play it on my dad's like iPhone 4. But now you can basically play anything anywhere, with exceptions to certain IPs owned by Nintendo like Zelda. Everything pretty much is platform agnostic. So Minecraft started off as PC, but you can play it on your iPad, on Steam, on the Switch, on your phone. And same applies for other games like Roblox, Among Us, Pop Fuzz, and Stardew Valley, which I personally have on my Switch and my phone.
In our lifetimes, and that means like the early ish Gen Z lifetime, there's been a lot of pivotal gaming moments. We started off with these Adobe Flash games. I know I was, like I said, really active on a lot of the kids oriented online multiplayer games. My favorite was always Club Penguin.
Animal Jam. I love Animal Jam. To anyone who has ever met a bunny, username is complete darkness. That was me.
Hebe, trying not to mention her emo background challenge, failed immediately. Do you think Cool Math Games falls into this category?
Oh, definitely. 100%. I used to play them on like school computers after we finished quizzes. They would block those sites, but we would find ways around it.
I can't believe they convinced us to use our brains for fun.
I know, right?
We've also consumed a lot of gaming content via YouTube. Honorable mention, I guess, to the role that YouTube as a platform played in shaping the watcher economy, which we'll touch on a little more later. But it's just where so many of us are not necessarily playing the games, but we are actively watching other people, in this case YouTubers, play them. Like personally, I had a huge PewDiePie, Markiplier, Jacksepticeye phase, but I also loved watching other Minecraft YouTubers play Minecraft or Pokemon YouTubers do Pokemon playthroughs. GT Live, like the Game Theory channel, did so much gaming content and they also live streamed, and I loved watching them play Five Nights at Freddy's, Kindergarten, those types of games.
Oh, just to add, I feel like Markiplier really made his name known with FNAF gameplays. I think that was one of the ones that I watched religiously as a kid. Should I be? Probably not, but I couldn't play the games myself, so. I think Minecraft deserves its own mention as a moment. I personally never played Minecraft. Maybe you can speak a little bit about it if you have, but I couldn't because I think you had to pay for it, and my parents were like, no gaming in the house type parents, so.
I remember the day my mom finally bought me Minecraft. It was like monumental. I think it was 2013, and I was so excited, but my Minecraft username was Twizzler Unicorn. Like, we were like opposites.
Yeah, I was gonna say. Twizzler Unicorn versus Complete Darkness. Who would win?
I think they'd be good friends.
I think so. And then we have Akinator, which is a small but crazy viral moment. I feel like everyone was on Akinator at one point trying to beat the genie, but I just remember some YouTubers playing it. And then we have Pokemon Go in 2016, which was also revolutionary given that there was like this physical outdoor component to a virtual game. So usually you play games at home, but this really changed up how it was. Personally, I didn't play it. Again, I live in rural Virginia. I would personally get hit by a car if I try to go outside and catch Pokemons because we only have highways and dirt roads. And then there's Fortnite, which I know my younger siblings play, was another phenomenon like no other. And honestly, it might have changed how gaming is viewed on a mainstream scale, considering its prominence on Twitch, which is another conversation we'll return to.
Enough about Fortnite. Let's talk about Roblox and how every iPad kid is on Roblox. Dress to Impress went so viral on social media that I played Roblox again earlier this year for the first time in ages. Yeah, if you don't know what that is, you're so out of touch, man. Get on that post 28 wave. Roblox is awesome. You could even say Roblox is Robloxum. Anyways, I feel like someone should take the mic from me, but I'm gonna keep driving this truck. I do want to mention as a last note, or maybe as a last moment, if we want to call it that, the popularity of Among Us during the COVID-19 pandemic. We can totally talk more about this later, but it was just really insane how this game took over everyone's lives in not just a major way, but a really important way. There were a lot of Twitch streamers who got really popular during this time because they were playing the game in lobbies with other popular streamers. I'm thinking about Corpse Husband, Valkyrae, Jacksepticeye, Tina Kitten, Ryan Higa, everyone in OTV actually. And then even on the regular people side of things, Among Us created opportunities to make friends virtually, which gave us young people, in particular, like Hebe and I were starting college, gave us the opportunity to create these critical social interactions even during a very, very isolating time.
Yeah, for Gen Z, gaming is actually a very social, almost like a hangout type experience. People have like dedicated Discord channels and private servers just for themselves and their friends, whether it's internet or in real life. My younger sister and my younger brother have their own like Discord channels with people that they've never met before, just because they played the same games and met through the game. Is it a little bit dangerous? Probably, but you know what? There's nothing you can really do. And you also get to see a lot of gaming content being shared on social media. So earlier this year, when Sabrina Carpenter, I think it's earlier this year, collaborated with Fortnite, I think the characters get to like dance to one of her songs, like Please, Please, Please. And then so many people recorded like Sabrina Carpenter meetups in the middle of the game. By the way, the objective of the game is to shoot each other till one person's alive, but people were just dancing with their avatars instead of doing the actual objectives. And there's so many POV videos floating on TikTok, and it was just a really crazy viral moment.
That also makes me think about how many gaming sounds or audio clips are popular on social media. I feel like the Among Us intro sound with like the little do in the background got really popular. There was a time when the Roblox oof sound that your character makes when it dies got really popular. And then even now, a lot of people use the Minecraft drinking sound as an overlay in their videos of them like drinking coffee or drinking water in their daily vlogs.
Yeah, you're right. It really does show that gaming is growing a lot, both as an industry and also as a mainstream hobby. I personally still say sus. You're sus.
You're right, it changed our language, which is a perfect segue to another topic we wanted to discuss, which is the perception of gamers. I would imagine that maybe some of our older listeners,
Ouch. Now you are the one aging our
there
audience.
was literally no other way to say it. I'm sorry. Anyways, some of our older listeners might be familiar with the traditional image of a gamer. I want you to close your eyes and picture this: a lone male, probably in his mid 20s, sitting in the basement of his parents' house, drinking some crazy soda or energy drink, and playing video games in the dark on a massive PC setup. And he probably has like cheese dust or something like that on his fingers.
Wow, goosebumps right now. Maybe at some point this is what the majority of video gamers were like, but just anecdotally, I feel like that hasn't been the case for a while. And perhaps because of this image, plus societal gender expectations, a lot of games that are considered real games are usually catered towards a male or male dominant audience.
Yeah, some of the games I think of are like Assassin's Creed, GTA, Call of Duty, maybe even Valorant. But again, we're going to keep saying this. We're not claiming to be experts of any sort, we're just observers and hobbyists. Which also leads us to the fact that gaming has become way more mainstream.
That's so exciting. And it's not like that gaming is completely different. It just have grown a lot. Casual gaming is on the rise. So there's games like Stardew Valley, Animal Crossing, Tamagotchi Plaza that just came out with the Nintendo Switch 2. I think it's new, but maybe I'm crazy. Creating like a welcoming environment for people that don't really have the video game skills or don't require crazy focus on plot, maybe just relaxation. So fun fact, I personally get motion sickness from playing first person POV games. I think I got motion sickness the first time I played PUBG. So I'm really glad that casual gaming or games like Stardew Valley is on the rise.
That is so unfortunate because I really love Call of Duty Mobile. I literally have a favorite bot that I like to play with because I don't think the game has enough players to populate the big battleground maps that they do. So shout out to Busted Kneecap on the COD Mobile North America server. You are my favorite bot. I love you, man. You're terrible at the game, but I miss you.
It's crazy.
But despite all that, it's not always positive, and this is something I'm really passionate about, so apologies for the mini rant I'm about to go on, but women are so underrepresented in the gaming industry, just not in the way that most people might think. According to Forbes, in 2020, women accounted for almost 40% of all gamers in the US. And in Asia, that number was between 40 and 45%, which is huge because Asia accounts for nearly half of total global gaming revenue. But in the same year, the 21st Gender Balance Scorecard revealed that more than 80% of executive positions in the gaming industry are held by men. Then, according to Deloitte, only 1/3 of esports viewers identify as women. And if you think about it, like, can you name any female esports athletes? I had a hard time finding an exact percentage, but there are way more male esports teams and players. Why are women still being kept out of this industry? Can't a girl just play her silly little games?
Okay, we're gonna give Valentina a moment to cool down for her passionate and rightfully passionate rant. Clearly, she's just a girl, but completely agree. There's definitely a layer of misogyny, must I say, tied to this topic. But this data she shared ties perfectly into the next topic that we want to touch on, which is the watcher economy. So thinking about YouTube or creators like Markiplier, PewDiePie, if you weren't able to play games as a child or you didn't want to play a game as a kid, chances are you probably watched other people play it for you. So you're living that video game experience vicariously through others. Like if you think of PewDiePie, at one point he was the number one most subscribed YouTuber, period. And I know not all of his content focuses on gaming, but a large chunk did. So you have this generation of kids who are so well versed in video game lore, but not having to play themselves. And I think that had to do with setting the stage for the later or the current Twitch frenzy. Of course, we're not industry professionals of any kind, but in our perception, Twitch streamers really saw this explosive growth during the COVID-19 pandemic. So instead of watching YouTube, which are isolated piece of content, which echoed how we were in isolated lockdowns during that time, people really want that full all-in video game experience, and Twitch provided it because it was live entertainment, a distraction from reality, and it gave a lot of community in a sense.
Yeah, on Twitch, you can chat live not only with other viewers, but with the streamer, depending, of course, on how big they are. But during the very isolating pandemic, it almost felt like you were surrounded by friends who had similar interests to you when you were chatting or watching a stream in real time.
I don't know if this is something Twitch does. I used to watch Chinese live streams. I think there was like a function where if you gift the streamer, they oftentimes would fulfill a request by you.
Yeah, Twitch does it too. It sometimes depends on how much you donate, or they have different tiers, but either your message will pop up on the screen, the streamer will read it out loud, or the streamer will do something.
Yeah, I think that's the closest face-to-face interaction you can have at that time. And then on the other end of this live entertainment spectrum, you have the growing esports industry. Nobody wants to admit it, but the esports industry is at least $1 billion industry. And when we talk about esports, it's kind of impossible to ignore the East Asian market, which is, I think, the largest esports market as of right now, and more recently, the entirety of Asia. So rather than watching Twitch during the pandemic, I ended up watching a lot of like Chinese Honor of King games live streams. And that's when I learned how mature the market is, at least in China. They have a huge fan base. I think they even went on to make like variety TV shows, either inviting like actual esports gamers or even celebrities to play on camera. And I think, don't quote me on it, our company may have sponsored one of them. I'm not 100% sure. But the point is, these shows rack up a huge amount of sponsorships.
Yeah, and then to put my one of my college majors to good use real quick, in South Korea, there are some esports athletes who are regarded or treated the same way as sports athletes or traditional celebrities. Like, there's this saying about how the three pillars of the globalization of South Korea are BTS in music, Son Heung-min in sports, and Faker in gaming. Like, that man is worshipped. Interestingly, esports athletes in Korea, at least to my limited knowledge, are also trained very seriously, almost like K-pop idols. You have to be part of a team, and when I say that, I don't mean like the lineup that plays, but rather the organization. You live in a dorm, you live stream as part of your contract. Like, there's fan content, and then there's also the professional gaming content. And then when they're successful, they go on to land major brand deals like with Ralph Lauren or Laneige. And if you take a step back, these teams are owned by really major corporations. Like, the biggest team in South Korea is owned by SK Telecom. And then in China, you have Bilibili. Over in the Western Hemisphere, you have PSG, which is a football club owning an esports team. There's a lot of overlap with the privileges that traditional media celebrities get, but I don't often hear people talking about the power or influence that esports athletes can have.
Maybe this is a hint at a future episode about fandom culture, a comparison with the East and West Hemisphere,
That would be really interesting.
especially on parasocial relationship, which
Yep.
with these huge fandoms and player bases, game franchises, storylines, and characters become like these transmedia IPs. So I think across East Asian countries, you get theme parks, film, music collabs. I think K-pop is a really good example of this. Fashion. You can see how mature the gaming market is in these Eastern countries, but we're also starting to see that here in the Western market with the success of Arcane. So not only did the show pick up a lot of popularity, but if you look at the soundtrack streams, 21 Pilot, Imagine Dragons, it's crazy. Of course, The Last of Us on HBO, Uncharted, etc., etc. And I know we have a couple more game adaptations coming out next year and in the future.
A personal note on Arcane is the reason I started playing League of Legends. And then a second note on Arcane is that the theme song by Imagine Dragons has surpassed way over 1 billion streams on Spotify. And I think people listen to that song without knowing it's affiliated with the show or with the game. So it just kind of goes to show that the fandom tends to expand into mainstream influence. And if you don't know where to look, you're not going to find it, but that means you're missing out. And unfortunately, just like any good plot, so too does this episode of Let's Circle Back have to end on a cliffhanger.
Yep, gaming is a really broad and interesting topic that we are both personally invested in, so we actually decided to give it 2 full episodes. In this one, we talked about our personal gaming histories, what we would personally define as Gen Z's formative gaming experiences, and the perception of gaming, gamers, and esports.
We have definitely said gaming way too many times this episode.
My bad. I feel like every episode we have to start banning certain words in case it shows up again and again. But in our next episode, we're going to chat through video game adaptations, gaming collaborations, and just this general idea of gamification that non-game video game brands have started to incorporate or have been incorporating in their marketing strategy. While we don't have specific advice for brands, at least as of this recording, one thing's for sure, it's a pastime to get on the gaming wave or get left behind.
And with that beautiful setup, I'm going to mention Cat's Eye's song, Game Boy, because we're not allowed to end the episode without mentioning Cat's Eye.
Yeah, we're not going to touch on any activations or campaigns, though you may have gathered how we feel about the Sydney Sweeney ad from earlier this week. Instead, we have fun news.
We do?
We do. We got promoted. That's it.
Oh, that's it?
Okay, we leveled up in the game of our careers.
Much better. Anyways, back to our listeners.
So thank you so much for tuning in to this episode of Let's Circle Back. Consider following us on Instagram and LinkedIn to keep up with our latest content. We've been your hosts. I'm Hebe.
And I'm Valentina.
And we'll see you next time.